You know what? I think you're right, man. We're gonna go ahead and get started. Um, so thanks everybody for joining. My name's Gene. I go by the Last Good Man in Jersey as my handle. I run a show. Mainly, I run a live every Tuesday night at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. But I do run shows at alternate times. Those are just a little bit less predictable. So what I'll say is that as we get into the content, if you like what you're hearing, click subscribe, click the notification bell, so that when new shows pop up, you can participate. I do like to make them interactive. I do focus on the chat and answering questions. And with that, let me catch up on the chat, and then we can go ahead and get into the actual content. So let me see. Ghostbot, boy, you got an egghead for bruh. Know every fact. Yeah, everybody brings that up every live. My comment is troll hard. Give me some good trolls. If you're gonna troll, be an excellent troll. Don't just say something basic. Show me what you got. Turn the music down and speak up. Well, the music does get dropped after my intro, but I'm gonna start my show the way I want to start my show. Um, Let me see. Dex. Okay, you look like Don Poyo. We get a lot of trolls. That's just the nature of it. So we'll see. Dennis McLaughlin. I'm embarrassed to say Trump has links to Scotland because his mom is from there. I have never looked into that, so I don't know anything about that. But interesting. Anyway, let's just kind of start with a big broad overview. Okay, so last Thursday, we finally had the first debate of the presidential race. Donald Trump, Joe Biden, CNN Atlanta, 90 minutes with a specific format, and they went at it. I've been looking forward to that debate for a while because I really wanted to see what they were going to do on a stage together. But I'll admit something. I thought going in that Biden was going to win the first debate because Biden handpicked the place, he handpicked the rules. I figured Biden set this thing up so that he's got an automatic win. I really thought it was going to be a lopsided victory for Biden because he set the stage. He picked the location and the format. And I got to tell you, that was not the case at all. Biden got destroyed in that first debate. We'll get into this, but Biden had one of the worst debates I've ever seen. It was epically bad. For perspective, prior to that debate, I think that a lot of people were curious about Biden and kind of how he would stack up to Trump. But coming out of the debate, people weren't just saying that Biden didn't do a good job. People were beginning to question whether Biden is fit to be president. Now, I think that that's an overreaction, but it doesn't change the fact that his performance was so bad that people started to say, is this guy actually capable of running the country for the next 4 years? Now, they blamed it on his mental decline and a lot of things that I don't agree with, but that doesn't mean that he didn't have a horrible performance. And it doesn't mean that he probably cost himself votes given what he did on Thursday. If I look at the interview and the way it actually happened, I think CNN did a fantastic job. I wasn't sure with these clocks how they were going to manage them. I thought that we were going to see candidates bumping up against the clocks a lot. I thought we were going to see candidates getting muted. And I wanted to see whether the clock management was fair, whether the mutings were fair. I wanted to understand how much the moderators were inserting themselves into the conversation versus basically letting Biden and Trump go back and forth. I don't think CNN did anything wrong. I think they did. I give them an A+ for the way they managed themselves and the way they handled the conversation. It felt natural. I don't think anyone ever got cut off. About the only thing that annoyed me was that they gave people their full 2 minutes, and I didn't really feel like they should have. If Biden answered a question and it only took him 90 seconds to answer, I didn't really want CNN to encourage him to just keep talking because he had 2 minutes. I would have preferred for them to say, okay, you answered the question, Now we're going to pivot. Trump can respond, or we'll shift to the new question. But that's a minor detail. And, we'll see how they handle it for debate round 2. But, yeah, for debate round 1, I don't have any issues. Biden was not prepared for what he actually went in there and had to face. I made a comment on another person's live stream. It was kind of funny because I got into an argument with a guy and he couldn't understand my point. And it was his live stream, but he's just not a very good interviewer. I said, I think that Biden's problem was that he over-prepared for the wrong scenario. He walked in there expecting to see a hot and bothered Donald Trump, and he had a lot of talking points specifically for a hot and bothered Donald Trump. So he had a plan A, but he didn't have a plan B. When Trump started dancing around him in that conversation, Biden was lost. He didn't know what to do. Now, the funny thing about it is, Biden spent a week preparing for this debate. He actually had a guy come into Camp David who pretended to be Trump, studied the way Trump speaks, looked at Trump's mannerisms. So Biden had been running mock debates with Trump all week leading up to this interview. But I think he was going up against, in his preparation, the wrong version of Trump. So he had a lot of points that he wanted to try to use, but he was expecting a different version of Trump. And that's where I say he was over-prepared for his plan A. He didn't have a plan B, and it showed. And he looked really bad. As a result of that, Trump, let's keep in mind, Trump has more camera experience than Biden. Trump's been a media celebrity most of his life. Trump is one of the most comfortable former presidents, let's say, I've ever seen in front of the camera. The only person I think is close to him in experience in front of the camera is going to be Ronald Reagan. So Trump gets out there in front of the camera and he just lets it go. He answers questions, he pivots, he avoids things he doesn't want to get into. He talks about what he's done well. He talks about what Biden's not doing well. And he talks about why he's the choice for 2024. And Biden just seemed to be chasing data points and trying to figure out what number to use next. But he was lost because Trump wasn't answering questions the way he wanted to. So Biden looked terrible. However, we do need to put it into some perspective, because I think that what people are saying about the debates and what actually happened are two different things. Now, if you look at the debates, it broke into 3 segments. They had the first discussion and then a commercial break, the second discussion, commercial break, and then the third discussion. Now, if I was going to grade their performance on each of those 3 segments, I would say Biden in that first segment got an F. I don't know how you argue he did anything else. But for the next 2 segments, he actually wasn't that bad. I would give him more like a B minus. He was answering questions, but he left such a horrible impression because of the way he started that it just dragged him down. It's kind of that idea, you made a bad first impression and that just carries through to the rest. I don't think he was horrible in the second 2 segments, but Trump was batting A pluses. So, a B minus is okay on its own, but when the guy you're up against is doing an A plus job, it makes you look bad. It's kind of like, like the Michael Jordan effect. There are a bunch of guys who are Hall of Famers who never are going to have championship rings. They're not bad, but they played in the era of Michael Jordan. Biden's looking kind of like that. It's like, you're just, actually that's a bit too strong, because I wouldn't say that Biden looked like a Hall of Famer at all. But he looked like he belonged on the stage in the second and the third segments. However, he didn't look like he belonged on stage in the first, especially when he had that moment where he just paused, didn't seem to know what to say next. That was one of the cringiest moments I've ever seen in a debate. And the fact of the matter is that Biden is going to have to own that. If Biden loses this election and people go back to the debate and say, you didn't give me enough confidence, that's on him. He wasn't ready. He spent a week getting ready at Camp David, and clearly he didn't prepare for the fight that he needed to fight. So that's one of the things he's going to have to acknowledge. But this is something that if I'm Biden and his camp, that I'm going to keep in mind. That was the first of two debates, and people have very short memories. So Biden's legacy isn't written yet. He has to do the second debate. He has no choice, because if the last thing people remember of him is debate one, he might as well hang it up right now. I don't know if he can pull it together for the second debate, but I know he has to try. That's going to be the only thing that is his saving grace, going into debate two and just totally turning it around. Can he do that or not? That's debatable. I would say I don't have much reason to believe he can, but that's possible. If he has a great second debate, well, then that's the latest thing people have seen on him. That'll change the narrative. If he has another horrible debate, well, that'll be the nail in the coffin. But again, we'll see. And the reason I say that is because most voters at this point are already decided. So the debates are kind of like window dressing. And I'll get back to the chat in just a second. I'll just finish this point up. Then I do want to get caught up on the chat. For most people, they're voting for Trump or they're voting for Biden, and it doesn't really seem to matter what comes out. They're not changing their mind. People who love Trump are voting for Trump. People who hate Trump are voting for Biden. That's been set for months now, and not much that happens on that debate stage is going to change that. However, this debate is going to come down to 6 swing states and a couple of thousand votes one way or the other. So if the debates matter at all, and I think that they do, well, I think Trump right now just secured a few votes that he might not have had before. That might be enough to tip the scales for him. We have to see. Debate 2 is still on the horizon, and we're going to have to see what that means. Now, let's go to the chat, and then we can come back and talk more about what we've got going on. Let's see. We got a lot in the chat. This will be good. So let me catch up to, okay. We had Dennis McLaughlin. Let me see. 007 Arizona says Barron Trump 2048. Okay. Haggard Dagger, you can't rig reality. I have to go back and look at your context. So are we talking about how Biden performed in the debate? You can't rig that, or are we talking about something else? Okay, Cry Till Your Soul is using some colorful language that I won't repeat. Let's try to keep the chat clean. I don't want YouTube filters coming down on me. Get back to work. It's a weird comment. I'm on the East Coast, so it's 7:30 here. I am off. 007 AZ, unfit for, unfit for office. You don't agree with, let me see. Gain Shillis, you don't agree with your silly dude. Okay, what are you asking exactly? I'm not clear on that. I don't agree with what? What are you asking if, what I agree with or don't agree with? Okay, 007, my analysis is on point, thank you. Greg Sutton, I agree, CNN did really well hosting a Trump rally. Okay, so here's the question, Greg Sutton. Now, if we want to say it was a Trump rally because that was an event that basically helped to generate support for Trump, I kind of see your point, but the only reason it became a Trump rally was because of how they performed on that stage. Trump did well and Biden didn't. I mean, it was a stark difference in their performances. And the reason everybody's coming out of that saying that, Trump won was because of just how dramatic, just how horrible Biden did there. And think about it. But for people, there are people who will argue about whether or not Biden had a bad performance on that debate stage. But if you have that opinion, my question is, well, when's the last time you saw a candidate do a debate and then have people question whether they could do the job afterward? That's clearly a step in the wrong direction. Biden wanted to come out of that debate generating more confidence in his ability. He did the exact opposite. And that was on pretty much every news network that was covering it. So that was bad. That was as bad as it gets, I would say. And we have to see if he's going to be able to recover. Maybe he can, maybe he can't. Maybe it doesn't matter that much because so many people's votes are already decided. I don't know. But yeah, I can't say that anything Biden is getting right now is undeserved because he's the one who went out there and fumbled. Sid's plumbing. I don't have any hair. Well, I have some. I got a lot on the sides. My sides are pretty strong. Gene Schillis. There will be no round 2, dog. Biden ain't doing that again. I disagree, Gene. Or it's Gain Schillis. Excuse me, Gain Schillis. I disagree. Biden has to go back and do a second round. Biden cannot afford to not do a second round because of how horrible this is. The only thing that would be worse for Biden than a bad second round would be quitting on the second round and saying he doesn't want to do it, because that would be cowardice. And the one thing Americans aren't going to tolerate out of a presidential candidate is cowardice. If he doesn't do round 2, then he's saying basically he can't compete. And I think that will destroy any chance he has of winning re-election. He can go out there, he can have a round 2, he can stink it up, and he can try to spin doctor what happened. And people will have to decide how much of what he did they want to believe or not. But he has to do round 2. He has no choice. Otherwise, that's just political suicide. Actually, I shouldn't use that term because of the filter, but it's out there. So, yeah, I think I am confident. I would bet money Biden's going to do a round 2. I don't see any way out of that for him. Sigma Mike. Biden used to hate Crips and Bloods. Okay. Trump at least will get to know a man first. Biden's prep was off. Yes. I agree. Okay, the Crips and the Bloods piece, I don't know where you're going with that. Yeah, I don't know where you're going with the gang thing at all. But I completely agree with you. Biden's prep was off. He over-prepped for one scenario, and he didn't face that scenario. And when he didn't know what to do with what he actually had to deal with. Gaines Schillis. My 90-year-old grandfather is more with it than Biden. Okay, now I'm glad that finally came up, because that's a comment I want to address. A lot of people are saying that Biden showed that he doesn't have the mental ability anymore. And I don't agree with that. I agree that he looked horrible on that stage. I agree that he looked lost on that stage, but I don't think that was mental decline, and I'll tell you why. Let's remember that a few months ago, Biden did a State of the Union address, and I would say his State of the Union was phenomenal. Now, admittedly, prior to his State of the Union, I never really sat down and listened to Biden give a whole speech. When he was vice president, I didn't care that much. When he was a senator, before that, I don't really follow senators and their speeches, just don't care. Once you become president, okay, I start paying attention. When he did his State of the Union, his State of the Union was great. And that was 3 months ago, roughly? So if we're saying that Biden has had a mental collapse, we're literally saying that in the span of about 3 months, he went from the guy who could do the State of the Union to the guy who doesn't know how to talk anymore. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case at all. I think that what happened here is he got overwhelmed by the moment. He was clearly nervous. I mean, he's spending a week prepping. He knows that he's going in to have a debate that's basically going to set the stage for how easy or hard it is for him to win re-election. And when he got to that stage and he had a version of Trump that wasn't what he was expecting, wasn't what he'd been practicing for, he didn't know what to do. For whatever the reason, I think Biden's one of those guys who's very good with us. If you give him a plan A, I think he can go out and he can execute it. And that's why when you see him doing a State of the Union or when you see him doing an interview, he does well because he knows what to expect. But if you throw a curveball at him, he doesn't know how to handle it. Trump threw a curveball at him. Trump was calm, cool, and collected. Trump was answering the questions he felt like answering. Trump was attacking Biden in ways Biden didn't really seem to know how to deal with. And Biden just looked lost. I got the sense that Biden was trying to figure out what facts or figures he was supposed to use for the version of Trump that he was facing, and he didn't know what to do because he didn't really know how to handle himself, how to pivot. I don't know if that's always something that Biden's dealt with or if that's just something that he got caught up with in the moment. But here's something that I can understand. And I don't know that this was the case, but I can kind of relate to it. Okay. President's still a person. So I'm not going to put it past the president to get rattled. And I was thinking about this because when I was in this interview a couple of days ago with this guy who really just didn't understand my points. He was a horrible interviewer. But I thought about something he said, which was, have I ever been in a situation where I really prepared for a speech and I fumbled my words? Now, I told him that, yes, I have, and I gave him a situation, but I didn't give him the best situation of where that happened. Real story. So when I was in high school, I used to be on the basketball team. By my junior year, I realized I'm not going to college because I'm not that good. So there was this pretty girl in the drama class that I wanted to try to date. I said, I'm going to take drama for a semester because I want to try to date this one girl. Long story short, one day I had to do I had to do a performance. I had to do a solo, but it was for a competition. And I had to stand in front of an audience and present. Now I'd done shows from my high school by this point. I was going out to that stage and I thought I'd be fine. But what was different was I was having a speech in front of a bunch of people who were my competitors. None of those people wanted me to do well because only a few people were going to win. And when I was looking at them and I was looking at them as competitors instead of the audience, it freaked me out. I forgot my lines. It was bad. It was really bad. When I was done, I thought, well, okay, I know I'm not going on to the next round, so I can pretty much head on out, grab some snacks at the vending machine because I'm done for the day. It was abysmal. Point is, you can get yourself in a situation, even though you've practiced, even though you've done things before, but because of that situation, you make it too big in your head. You work yourself up, you don't perform well. I think a little bit of that's what happened to Biden, and I think Biden's bad prep is part of what happened to Biden. But Biden went out there and, he just laid an egg. Can he recover from it? Sure. But I do have to reflect on the fact that a few months ago he did a State of the Union that was fine. So if that was a mental decline, if something happened to Biden that's so dramatic that from the State of the Union until now he lost his ability to speak, well, he can't do a second debate because, if he's fallen off a cliff like that, by the time they have the next debate, he won't be able to talk. He'll be an invalid. That's the kind of decline we'd have to see. Otherwise, somebody's got to explain to me how he was able to do a good State of the Union, but he wasn't able to do a good debate. If it's mental decline, then explain to me why he didn't have that mental decline during the State of the Union. I've heard people say, well, he's using teleprompters. I saw the floor when they did the State of the Union. There weren't teleprompters unless they were way in the back, in which case I don't think Biden would be able to see them. I think he did a good State of the Union because he was prepared. He did a horrible debate because he wasn't prepared for that situation. Deleted account. Okay, when people do deleted accounts, that's mildly annoying to me because basically that tells me that I probably know who they are and they don't want me to see what their name is, so they delete their account, but then they say they troll. It's like, okay, who are you and why aren't you bold enough to just put your name to your comments? Brian Reyes, Trump is coming back again. Well, I got to tell you, Brian, if that debate is going to decide the election, Biden didn't win any votes in that debate. I think Trump did. So we're going to see. Sigma Mike, I thought Biden was okay, not as terrible as everyone says. See, I agree with you there, but it goes back to that. It's the first impression that he made. His start was horrible, horrible. After that, he did a reasonably good job. I mean, he wasn't great, but he wasn't horrible. He was like, Biden. But when you make that bad first impression, that can carry you the rest of the debate. And I think that's what happened to him. Because it was just so bad at the start, people couldn't get past that. Couldn't get past him, like literally getting lost in thought at one point in the early segment where you had to wonder whether he was actually going to be able to get back on track or not. That was hard to watch. So then we've got risk management is formed by diversified guidelines. Okay. Sigma Mike, 2 years, then Kamala hopefully. Sigma Mike, you're the first one who has said that. I've heard a lot of people who say they're not going to vote for Biden say the reason they're not voting for him is because they think he won't make it through 4 years. And they don't see this as an election of Trump versus Biden. They think it's Trump versus Harris. But none of them have looked forward to Kamala Harris being president. So they don't have the excitement that you do. Gain Schillis, pandering worse than Hillary Clinton. That was the entire debate. Trump 2024. Pandering? Okay, what do you mean pandering? Pandering. Explain that to me. Like, I don't. Yeah, where are you going with that? I wouldn't say Biden. I can't say Biden was pandering. I can't really say Biden was doing anything other than fumbling. He gave a couple of data points. He didn't answer questions well. If you're saying I'm pandering, then I would wonder how you're getting there. Because I said pretty clearly, Trump won the first debate. Biden looked terrible. Biden could lose the election based on that. So, like, who's pandering and how are you getting to that? They won't do a second debate. You're a fool if you think otherwise. I disagree. As I said, I don't know how Biden can hope to win the election without doing a second debate. He has to correct his image based on what just happened. Otherwise, he's lost. What's the upside for Biden of not doing a second debate? That's my question for you, Gain. Why? Yeah. Well, like, what would be the rationale for not doing it? Thinking, just giving up? Because if you don't do it, you're going to lose the election. So, explain to me like what's going on there. Jersey Mike, Obama was destroyed in his first debate. What was the final result? Yeah, it's your last impression is, it's what's called recency bias. People will forget a lot of the things that you do. The thing that they remember the most is the last thing you did. Right now, the last thing Biden did was horrible. The last thing Trump did was excellent. Now, Trump's a little bit of a different case because Trump's got some legal things that are going up. So the last thing Trump does might not have anything to do with the debate. But right now, Biden doesn't do a lot of public speaking. This is the last memory people have of him. And if this is it, well, he would have been better off not doing the debate at all because coming out of the State of the Union, he had something to work with. Right now, he's got to regain and restore his credibility. Let me see. Gain Schillis retracted. MAGA saying MAGA makes sense. Jersey Mike's got some messages retracted. Okay. MAGA free the Jan 6th Patriots. Okay. Well, some of the people who went to jail for Jan 6 are already back out. I don't take the position that the Jan 6 people are patriots. I think that some of them got prosecuted. Some of them got prosecuted for not doing anything that serious. They just walked into the Capitol building because to them it felt like the doors were open. But some people were in there stealing stuff, and let's face it, people died. A police officer died. Babbitt died. I'm not calling somebody who killed a police officer a patriot. Not at all. That's a murderer. They deserve what they get. There were some very bad actors that were part of Jan 6. I'm not going to say all of them were bad actors because some of them, I don't think all of them were. I think most of them weren't. But yeah, if we're saying free them all, I don't agree with that at all. Some of them deserve to rot in jail for the things that they did. The ones who kill the police officer, yeah, I don't have any sympathy for them at all. Greg Sutton, I believe that the debates help independent voters. Yeah, in the undecideds, the people who are undecided, I think the debates help because they give them a good look at both the candidates side by side. What's particularly important is going to be undecideds in the 6 swing states. I mean, I still think California is going to go Republican. Texas, I mean, it's going to go Democratic. Texas is going to go Republican. Et cetera, et cetera. 44 states have been very consistent in the last 2 elections. I don't expect them to change right now. But there are 6 states that flip-flopped, and those are the ones that we're going to have to see. So I do think the debates matter. I do think that first debate is going to have an impact on some of the early votes that are going to be by mail. But I do think that debate 2 can change the narrative if they have a different performance. If Biden doesn't do any better now than he did in debate 1, okay, I would be stunned if he wins. But if he turns it around and he wins the election, that won't be that shocking to me because his last impression will be a good one. So we have to see. Haggard Dagger says, indeed, the 2020 election actually. Jersey Mike, Trump did not do great. Trump was awful too. Biden just looked terrible. Okay, so in what regard are we saying Trump did not do great? Trump had an approach to the debate that, honestly, I thought Joe Biden could have attacked. But Joe Biden didn't. Biden didn't seem to know how to address it. Let me give you an example of things that Trump did that I thought Biden could have attacked, but he didn't. And it just helped Trump look great coming out of this. Trump told one thing that I for sure think is just a bald-faced lie. I don't think anybody in America believed it. Trump said he didn't sleep with Stormy Daniels. Now, I don't know anybody in America who doesn't think that Trump slept with Stormy Daniels. I don't even think Trump believes that. But he said it. He's like, what are you going to do? Prove it. Prove that I did. That was a weird moment. Biden didn't jump on that. If I'm Biden, I would have called him a liar. I would have said nobody in America believes what you just said. I would have chopped that apart and used that to erode Trump's credibility. But Biden didn't do that. Biden got lost. Trump said it. Trump looked at him like, what are you going to say if I say I didn't sleep with him? And Biden didn't have a response. So did that make Trump look bad, or did that make Biden look bad? I'd say that made Biden look bad because Trump basically dared him to call his bluff, and Biden didn't do it. Trump came out of this looking great because Biden walked out of this looking so terrible. Nobody walked out of that debate saying that Trump seemed less capable than he did going in. But people did come out of that debate saying Biden seems less capable than he did going in. So as far as the result, yeah, Trump got the result he wanted out of that debate. How he got there, you can debate the path, but he took an approach to the debate that worked for him because Biden didn't know how to respond. Ross Wright, Trump wasn't debating. I'm pretty sure Biden didn't prepare dealing with Trump's lie. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so Trump lied about Stormy Daniels. Yeah, he's not going to convince me he didn't sleep with Stormy Daniels. He paid her to sign an NDA, and she's not a business person, so what's he paying her to shut up about when the only skill she seems to have is, is an adult entertainer? Like, okay, I wasn't born yesterday. I get what happened there. He said that thing about suckers and losers. Now, that as I've done more research, I'm leaning towards Trump having lied about that. I think Trump did call veterans suckers and losers. I can't prove it, but Trump's answer was weird because Trump said he's got 19 people who will say that he didn't say it. Well, as far as I understand, when Trump said that, there's this general who says Trump said it. My understanding is there was a small group of people around when Trump said this because there was some phone call and they were trying to coordinate. So there were 5 people in this room with Trump. So if he's saying 19 people say he didn't say it, there weren't 19 people in the room. So I don't care what 19 people say. I care about what the people in the room said. And the only person who I know was in that room at the time was this general that got fired. So, okay, Trump lied about Stormy Daniels and he lied about suckers and losers, but Biden didn't hold his feet to the fire about that either. If Biden's not going to hold his feet to the fire, if I'm Trump, of course I'm going to lie. I'm going to lie about stuff that I don't want to answer. If you don't hold my feet to the fire, why should I tell the truth about sleeping with Stormy Daniels? Makes me look bad. So that's on Biden. I don't fault Trump for taking the approach he did. He's like, let me see what Biden does. I'm not going to answer questions I don't want to answer. Let me see what Biden does. And Biden just kind of stood there and looked lost. He wasn't prepared for that. He was prepared for somebody who would basically argue the way he does, answer questions, try to provide data. And Biden had data points to use, but he didn't have big answers to the question, what if Trump lies? What if Trump avoids the question? What are you going to do? That's what he's going to have to figure out how to deal with that if he does the second debate, which I'm assuming he has to do. We'll see. 47. If you ask Biden a question he didn't get beforehand, he can't answer it. That's what it seemed to be. I mean, Biden spent, kind of surprised, because Biden spent like a week preparing for this debate. So if he was studying for this for a week, why wasn't he better prepared? He was prepared for a very specific scenario. I got that sense, but that's not what he faced. So he just got out there and he just fumbled. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know what data points to use. It just looked about as bad as it could look. And that's why people now have lost so much confidence in him. I still say, though, it's not mental decline. I don't believe that. Because if he's literally falling off a cliff like that in 2-3 months, he's going to be almost bedridden. That it just doesn't make sense to me, mental decline. And I don't believe he has dementia, but I've talked about this in other shows. I have family members who've passed away from complications related to dementia. I've seen that up close and personal. If you have a family member who has dementia, you would fall on your knees of thanks if they had the clarity that Biden had, even on the debate. If they could speak like that, yeah, you would be so thankful. People with dementia don't remember their name. They don't remember who you are, and you're their grandchild. Dementia looks very different, and you can't just drug somebody up and have them suddenly snap to. So I don't believe that at all. And I think that most of the people who accuse him of having dementia just haven't seen what dementia actually looks like, because it's a very ugly disease, the way it kind of just slowly eats somebody away. It takes away who they were. But I will acknowledge Biden is not as sharp as he used to be. Everybody gets old. Everybody loses a step. I don't know how much of a step he's actually lost, but he can't pivot well. That I saw clearly. He doesn't know how to adjust to different situations. That makes him look bad on a debate stage. If you're arguing with a world leader, you already know what you're going to be arguing about. You owe me money. These are the services that were promised, etc., etc. When you're on a debate stage, you can't predict what's going to come at you. So that's a different situation. Let me see. Greg Sutton. He was read off a teleprompter at the State of the Union. I've heard that. I don't think that's the case. I didn't see the teleprompter. Now, it's possible, but I didn't see one. So I think that he just knew what he was going to present at the State of the Union. He wasn't really challenged on anything. It wasn't a debate. So he did a good job. I think he can do a good job when he knows what the assignment is. He's got a plan A. He doesn't need a plan B. If he needs a plan B, he's suddenly in trouble. Go Juice 120. Welcome, Go Juice. Oh, and I need to remember. If you like the content, click subscribe, click the notification bell, so that when I do more pop-up lives, you'll be notified and you can participate. So Go Juice 120. I'm in a hyper partisan world. This is refreshing, level-headed analysis. So that's what I'm trying to do. There are people who, after that debate, were radically right, radically left. I just think, you know what? I don't think either side is telling the real story. They're just flipping out. When people are saying Joe Biden needs to retire, it's like, come on, that's an overreaction. What did you say after his State of the Union? Did you say that, forget the election, just march him into his second term? No. Like, people are pushing narratives. I want to try to understand what the real story is. So that's what I try to do. Gain Schillis, reading off a teleprompter and debating is two different things. Shouldn't a president be able to deal with curveballs? So I would say yes and no. Here's the thing that I go back to. I don't think that Joe Biden's performance in the first debate has anything to do with his ability to be president. I mean, let's face it. He's been president for 4 years. I think he's done a good job. Trump was president for 4 years. I think he did a pretty good job. They've had different challenges. Some of their challenges they handled better than others. But I've got 4 years of Joe Biden's track record to fall back on. So I'm not going to say he can't be president. I am going to say he didn't do a good job in that first debate. But when it comes to arguing with political leaders about what the world needs to do, no, I don't think that has any. I don't think that debate format is anything like what he's going to deal with when he's talking to world leaders. Remember, when he's talking to world leaders, he's representing America. He's got leverage. He's in this debate where he doesn't really have that. He's actually interviewing for the job of president for the next 4 years. And I think that he's kind of freaked out about it. That's why he spent so much time prepping. So yeah, I can see how he got nervous, how he didn't perform well. I'm not excusing it. He stunk. He stunk. And whatever happens as a result of this, he deserved, because he's the one who went out there, handpicked this format, and wasn't able to take advantage of it. I don't excuse any of that at all. But I'm not screaming that the sky is falling because of that one debate, because I've just got too much of a track record to lay everything at the feet of this one debate. But what about everything else he's ever done? How does all of that get thrown out and just this one thing count? That's where it gets a little weird for me. Greg Sutton, he was strutting and staring off into space at the debate. Stuttering, I guess that's what you mean. Yeah, he was. He absolutely was. He didn't look good. I got the sense that he was really trying to figure out what to say. I got the sense that he was trying to figure out what numbers to use. This is just me, my take. I get the sense that Biden is kind of like nerdy, and he's comfortable with his numbers, and he likes to use facts and figures to argue his point because that's what makes him feel good. And he didn't know what facts and figures to use because Trump wasn't arguing the way he had been practicing against Trump to do. So he was stuttering. Staring off into space, yeah, he was, but that was like he wasn't prepared for Trump. Trump would say, I didn't sleep with Stormy Daniels. And then Biden sitting there like lost. Like, what do I do? He lied. Like, you call him out on the lie is what you do, but Biden couldn't figure that out. So he was lost. He didn't know how to handle Trump. That was clear. Trump was dancing around him. Trump was like Cassius Clay in a boxing match, bobbing and weaving, floating like a butterfly, stinging like a bee. And Biden just stood there getting hit. Let me see. Beckenty. Welcome, Beckenty. What do you think about Michelle Obama going to Democratic nominee? So at this point in the race, the Democrats are locked in. It's Biden and Kamala Harris. You do not switch horses. You just don't. If you switch horses, you lose. You are basically saying, we didn't know how to represent our party correctly. If you switch horses, that's what you're saying. We didn't know how to choose the presidential candidate. So there is no reason for America to believe that whoever you prop up next is going to do a good job. This ship floats or sinks with Joe Biden. Right now, it's shaky. People aren't comfortable. They got good reason not to be. But there is another debate coming up, so we're going to have to see kind of how this whole, how the plane lands. Gain Schillis, Big Mike. Look Gothics, your head looks like a dull pencil tip. Okay, now that was a little more original. Okay, that's not just pointy head. That's like, okay, you got the dull pencil tip. Give you some points for that. You actually stepped up on the trolling. Greg Sutton, the next debate is set for September. So that's my understanding. Here's, there's this weird, like, new thing to consider. I'll just pivot to this because it's not really what I want to focus on today. But you know, Trump's got the new ruling from the Supreme Court. He's got this weird immunity. He's like immune from official presidential acts, but not from private acts. So they did that, and I don't think they really specified what that means. But they passed that down to the state court. So now you're like, well, what are we doing here? What's an official act and what's a private act? Now, if we're talking about the Stormy Daniels case, I'm pretty sure that anything he did before he was president has to be considered a private act. Can't be an official act. He wasn't president. But other things he did, it's like, well, kind of where do we draw the line? Judge Merchant actually delayed Trump's sentencing by a couple of days because the Supreme Court gave this ruling, and he's like, oh, well, now I got to like read this and I got to think about what it means and how that impacts Trump's sentencing. I never thought Trump was going to jail to begin with. I don't think Trump should go to jail personally because I don't, the charges he's being convicted of, seem a little bit more politically motivated than they should be. And when you look at how sentencing has historically worked for this is normally a Class E misdemeanor. They took a very convoluted route to get to Trump being convicted on this level. I get it. I understand what they did, but yeah, Trump going to jail for this, that would have been a bit much. I don't think he's going to go to jail. And if he doesn't go to jail, then yeah, I expect the next debate to happen in September. I know people can disagree, but I don't see how Biden can't do a second debate because he has to clean that stain off his face. So yeah, I expect it to happen in September, but there are a couple of variables that we'll have to look at. Ross Wright. How many more court decisions do we have to go through before this country opens its eyes? Well, so here's the thing I would say, Ross. Trump has gone through a couple of legal cases, and he has a couple of legal cases on the books now. Here's what the legal cases seem to be doing. If you are pro-Trump, then you look at the legal cases and you say, Trump's being persecuted. More reason to support Trump. If you're anti-Trump, then you look at the cases and say, look, at all these things Trump has done wrong. More reason to distance yourself from Trump. I don't think the cases are having much of an impact on how people view Trump. They either give you more of a reason to like him or more of a reason to dislike him. But they're not converting anybody. And it's sort of weird because I do think that some of this, I think some of this is politically motivated. Some of the things he did, like the, I don't remember the woman's name, but the woman he had to pay out, that was kind of on him because he wasn't going to have to pay her, but he kept talking about this case after it was over. He basically handed her everything she needed to win that civil suit. If he just didn't talk about it, he'd have been fine. So that's on Trump. But the other stuff, you can argue about the political motivations of. Like, wait, why are we right now dealing with issues that happened 4 years ago that could have been prosecuted 4 years ago? That's a question I think someone's going to have to answer if they're trying to explain why it's not politically motivated. Let me see. Not a real panda. You remind me of Franklin the Turtle. Well, I don't know who Franklin the Turtle is, so you're going to have to, I can go look that up, but you'll have to elaborate on that. Maybe I'll take a look and Franklin the Turtle will be a great resemblance and it'll be a funny joke. We'll have to see. Keiki20, hello, Keiki20. If you're liking the content, please like and subscribe and click that notification bell. So when we do another live, you can participate. Eddie the Eagle has landed. Eddie the Eagle is one of the regulars. Welcome back, Eddie the Eagle. We are talking about Biden and Trump in that first debate. And I've let it be known that, yes, Trump won the first debate. Biden looked horrible. Biden is going to have to go into a second debate because he's got egg on his face and he's going to have to clean it up. But I do think that that first debate is only going to have a little bit of an impact on the election because there's still a second debate, and that's going to have more of an impact. And most people are already decided. So it was a very bad look for Biden. I do think it will cost him some votes, but we're going to have to see what that means. I don't think that I don't think that he lost the election as a result of that first debate, but he did lose votes. We're going to have to see how everything shakes out. Let me see. Gaines Schillis, they didn't kill a police officer. You're literally delusional, bro. No, they did have an. I don't agree with that. One officer, like, what is it? One officer died. Then, several officers were injured, and there were other officers who self-terminated, I guess I'll say, afterwards. And Babbitt got shot. So, kind of to the macro point, calling all of those people patriots, I don't agree with that. People who were attacking police officers, in my opinion, are not patriots. They're not. I don't feel like people who were just walking into the Capitol building because the doors were open and everyone was rushing in. I don't think that all of those people should be arrested. I could easily see, it's just a crowd. Like, oh, everybody's walking in and you're following the crowd. But if you got in there and you started stealing stuff, if you were hunting for people, yeah, then you're a criminal, in my opinion, and you deserve to go to jail. I'm not calling all of those people patriots. I'm just saying some of them are being persecuted because they were part of a bad crowd. Rick, I want to see Biden take a cognitive test. That could be interesting. Here's the thing. Trump has taken cognitive tests, but I don't really know what the test. I mean, I saw he took some cognitive tests that he chose from his doctor, and he always brags about how well he did. But I heard, somebody else said they took his cognitive test and it was a really easy test. Like the first question is, what's your name? Like, how old are you? It was basic stuff. So if we were going to play that game, sure, but I would want both candidates to take a real test. Like, you don't get to choose your doctor. We're going to find, a test from a psychologist that actually measures something, and then we'll run it. I would be interested in seeing that. It's never going to happen, but yeah. Let me see. Gaines Schillis. I can't tell you how entertaining I find watching Democrats try to cope with their party falling to pieces. Cope with the party falling to pieces. So if you're saying you're happy because Biden did a horrible job, that makes sense. I'm not happy or sad about it. I'm just looking at it. But yeah, I would expect everybody who's voting for Trump to be celebrating coming out of that first debate. And I would expect everybody who's voting for Biden to be nervous coming out of that first debate. So yeah, I don't fault you for being happy about the state of affairs today, because I think that the first debate worked much better for Trump than it worked for Biden. So yeah, now's a great time to toot your horn. Eddie the Eagle, Trump better have tapped that. That would get my vote. Trump better have tapped that. Tapped what? Beck and Ty, Twitter versus TV. Twitter versus TV. Well, TV's dying. Social media is taking over. Most eyeballs are on social media because it's way more interesting than TV, and it's free. TV is not going to be able to survive charging you for reruns of shows you've seen 100 times already, when you can go to social media and get live streams and it's free and you can participate. Yeah, TV is on its way out, but it'll take a while. Eddie the Eagle, stages of dementia, big cat. Come on, my guy. Tell me this, Eddie. If you're calling this stages of dementia, why wasn't this evident 3 months ago when he did the State of the Union? I mean, if we're saying it's dementia, we're not saying that it's like a progressive decline. No, we're saying that from the State of the Union until now, he literally fell off a cliff. It's possible, I suppose so, but if he's falling off a cliff let's face it, you don't slow down, things speed up. So if he's falling off a cliff like that, well, in September when it's time for the second debate, he's going to be incoherent. He's not going to know where he is. So I can't buy into the dementia argument. I'll wholeheartedly say he's lost a step. Biden looked a lot. I've seen clips of him talking on the floor when he was younger. Okay, he was more with it than he is now. That's not to say that he's lost, but it is to say that he's kind of lost a step. Um, has he? No, I'm not worried about it. Let me just change my. I need to plug in so I don't lose this. Bear with me 1 second. Don't want to lose my power. All right, there we go. I'm going to say he's lost a step, but I don't think he's lost all his marbles. Let me see. Piney the Impaler. Why do you look like a conehead? I get conehead a lot. You gotta do something more than that. That one's old. If you're gonna troll hard. Give me something to work with. Rick. He looks more like a milk dud. Okay, I get milk dud too. Eddie the Eagle, get your head out of the sand. Democratic Party loves ostriches like you, my guy. I guess tell me why I got my head in the sand. Because I'm not saying Biden won the debate. I don't think he did. I think Trump won. I think Biden looked terrible. But I also think that was just debate one, so I don't think that that's the nail in the coffin, because I think that debate two is going to have an impact as well, assuming Biden does well. I don't know that he will do well or not. I'm just saying that if he does well in debate two, people will start to kind of forget debate one. I don't try to oversell Trump's victory. I don't try to undersell Biden's collapse in that first debate. I just try to give a fair analysis of what happened. What I think happened is Trump moved the ball forward. But most people have pretty much already decided who they're going to vote for. So we're talking about some undecided voters in some swing states. Do I think that was enough to necessarily convince them to vote for Trump? I can't say that, because, I get comments all the time from people, because I always post political videos. And tons of people came out and basically said they're still voting for Biden. They were embarrassed by what he did, but they're still voting for him. Tons of people who vote for Trump were kind of laughing at Biden and his performance. I didn't see people crossing party lines, and that's really what it's about. Is anybody going to cross party lines? Is anybody jumping into the Republican boat who wasn't there before? So I'm looking at it very specifically like that. Nahom Hailu. Why do you care what Joe... Okay, you got to finish that for me. I'm not sure what you mean. Are you talking about his mental state or his re-election possibilities? Yeah, fill me in. What do you mean there? Can you imagine him getting nervous in front of Putin? So I don't think either candidate would get nervous in front of Putin, but I do think that they would approach the Putin conversations very differently. Biden supports funding Ukraine, Trump doesn't. They've got their different reasons, and I do think that that's money that is being thrown to the losing side of the war. But I've heard the arguments for why the Ukraine is being funded by us. I don't necessarily agree with all of that, since they're going to lose, but I understand why it's happening. That is what it is. Gain Schillis. Even though I disagree with you about everything, I respect the calm demeanor in which you convey your denial. More conversation like this is needed. Yeah, people should be able to agree to disagree. I was literally on an interview with a guy. He had his live stream, and he couldn't get to the agree to disagree. He was basically yelling, screaming, freaking out, arguing all kinds of random points because he thought Biden had dementia, and I said, I don't think that's the case. I think he was just overwhelmed. This guy couldn't get to a point where we could just have a discussion. He needed to try to destroy my argument, and he couldn't because, prove that my conversation to him was basically prove that Biden has dementia, and he can't. Explain to me why he did a good State of the Union, but he can't do a good first round debate. If you can't explain that, then I have a reasonable argument to say I don't think he has dementia. Doesn't mean it's true or not. It just means that's my opinion. One Who Cares. Welcome back, One Who Cares. Always like to see the people who are returning and participating. Good evening to all in the chat. Good evening to you. One Who Cares. Biden can't cross the street by himself. Seriously, he needs rest. Biden is going to have to deal with comments like that. That's the thing about when I say Trump won and Biden lost. Biden's performance was the epic failure of my lifetime, I have to say, because this is the first time I've seen a debate where a candidate walks out of the debate and people are literally saying, "Is this person fit to be president?" Now, I think that that's a bit of an extreme take on what happened, but I can't argue with people saying it because of how bad he looked. This was awful. So yeah, Rick is Rick. Okay, I'm not reading that. That's a little. I'm not doing that, Rick. You gotta clean that kind of stuff up. I'm not gonna wish harm on anybody. Look, I don't hate Trump. I don't hate Biden. They're just two guys who've got some opinions I like and some opinions I don't like. I feel like one of them helps me financially better than the other, and that's why I'm voting the way I'm voting. But it's not because I've got any personal vendettas against anybody. I don't want to see Trump suffer. I don't want to see Biden suffer. I'm just that's kind of a different dark corner that I just don't go down. People who do that are just taking things way too seriously. You got to take a step back. Sandra Esparza, discussions are great. No need to insult anyone. We are all Americans. We can have discussions without insult. Exactly. That's what it's about. We don't have to all agree. It's like, let's just get the opinions out there and then let's see what makes the most sense. That's what I'm trying to push for. 007A seems okay. Mark Truth. Bristol Barrett, Trump 2024. Mark agreed. Mark Schaefer, how will Biden help the country? Okay, so for people who are supporting Biden, generally what they're going to say is they like the approach he has to probably tech and STEM. They like where financially they are. They like how the macroeconomic, they like macro, how the economy is going. And they like the foreign affairs. Those are generally the things I've seen. Now, I will admit, most of the people who I've seen who are voting for Biden are doing it because they don't like Trump. I did a survey. I ran two videos. I ran a video basically that said, "Why are you voting for Trump?" And then I did another video and said, "Why are you voting for Biden?" The people who were voting for Trump talked about, his the economy, and a lot of the things Trump was doing with the borders and things that he was doing that felt like it was America first. Most of the people who answered why they're voting for Biden basically told me reasons why they hate Trump. So it wasn't about Biden. It was about they just don't like Trump. They talked about sexual misconduct. They talked about his business dealings. They talked about January 6th. So in terms of how will Biden help the country, for a lot of people, it just gets into the character of the president. Is that going to help the country? You can debate that or not. But yeah, for some people, they want a president who presents a certain way, and they feel like Biden does a better job of that than Trump. For people who are voting for Trump, they feel the opposite. They feel that Trump represents the presidency better than Biden, and that's why they got the support. Kingsbury, 93, Trump. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Okay. Not sure where you're going with that. Sandra Esparza. I was a lifetime Democrat, but in all seriousness, I can no longer agree with how far left the Democratic Party has gone. I completely understand why you're saying that, because I see a lot of people saying that. Here's the weird thing. It used to be like conservative versus liberal, and you would talk about conservatives, and sometimes you would talk about people who were far right. And that was like it's like, you're not conservative, you're far right, you're an extremist. That didn't really seem to exist for liberals, but now it does. Now you've got liberals and you've got leftists. And leftists are viewed as like this extreme group. And a lot of people want to distance, a lot of people who I know who are liberals want to distance themselves from leftists because they feel like that's going too far. So when you look at where the Democratic Party has gone, yeah, some of the extreme views are driving people out, driving people right over to conservative greens because they're saying, I'm more comfortable with this than I am with that thing over there. I don't make my decision. I don't fault anybody for how they make their decisions. I don't make my decisions that way. My decision, mine just comes down to finance. Who's going to help me make more money? That's literally all I look at when I'm voting for a candidate. Not everybody likes to look at it that way, but that's the way I look at it. So if you're the guy who's going to make me more money, you got my vote. And it would take a lot to move me off of that position. Grande Cafe official YouTube channel. Biden has helped us blacks a ton. So basically, you here to encourage people to vote for Trump. All righty. This isn't a hate comment, by the way. Well, so let's break that down, Grande. I guess let me kind of change the order that I respond to the questions in. I'm not telling people to vote for Trump or Biden. I'm telling people what I saw in that debate. And I'm asking questions because I want to know who people are voting for. I don't really tell people who to vote for. I do try to talk about issues because what I don't want someone to do is look for a candidate who's going to support an issue that they care about and then pick the candidate who they actually don't. Like, okay, using an extreme example. If you're a big environmentalist and you care about green energy and global warming, Biden's the better candidate for you than Trump in that instance. If you care about blue-collar, high-paying American jobs, Trump seems to be the better candidate for you in that instance. I just want to make sure that if somebody's looking for something specific, they understand the candidate that's offering that. But beyond that, you got to figure out what you care about. You got to vote for the candidate that you feel you care about. As far as Biden has helped black people a ton, I don't know that Biden's. I don't think that Biden has undermined black people. I don't know that he's done anything special. I think Biden's done some things for black people. I think Trump's done some things for black people. And, that's kind of a very generic idea because, like, Trump funded historically black universities, HBUs. He put funding in place where the funding was kind of running out. I don't know that another candidate wouldn't have done it, but he was the one in the chair. He's the one who did it. That helped some black people. I didn't care because I'm not in college anymore. My kid's not going to an HBU. That didn't help me. So he helped black people, but that didn't impact me at all. So I'm not going to vote based on that. I'm not going to take credit away from him though. I mean, he did it. He gets credit for it. I think that, I know that about 90% of black people vote Democratic. If you just look at every election going back to civil rights, where Goldwater and Johnson ran, and Goldwater basically wanted to protect Jim Crow laws. When he did that, that's when the Republican Party lost the black vote. And they've never really gotten that many black votes since. But I think that we're reaching a point where people are starting to say, you know what? I'm looking at the situation. I'm not just looking at the party. I'm starting to ask the question, who's better for me? And just saying you're a Democrat doesn't mean you're better for me. You got to actually show me if you're better for me or not. I don't tell people to vote based on their race. I think that's silly. I think you should vote based on your circumstance. Is one candidate or the other better for you in your circumstance? That's what I think you should do, but you know what? It's a free country. You got to make your own decision. However, I am going to encourage people to have the conversation. So that's what my show is about, is having the conversation. I'm not going to tuck tail and avoid issues because I don't see the point. The Roving Ronin. One of the cartoon characters from South Park at this point would represent the presidency at this point. So you're saying this, Biden's become a cartoon, and you may as well just make it a comedy. Grande Cafe official found that funny. Jack Doe, how many genders are there? All right. So I'm not going to address that here because I've seen, let's be very honest. I've seen people get into that issue on YouTube, and I've seen them lose their channels. There's a guy who made that the focus of his channel, He was making mega bucks. I think that guy was making, well, like $20,000 a month. That's how big his channel was. And he was hammering on that. And YouTube demonetized him. So I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. Yeah. I'm not touching any topics that will get me demonetized, because that would be, yeah. I don't see the point of that. So, Jack Doe, Biden said there are at least 1 million. Okay. Um, Scotty Tahati, lower taxes benefit every American. Well, that depends. Kind of that. If we're talking about corporations getting lower taxes, that can benefit you. If you work for a company and they pass that down in a bonus or something like that. But let's say you work for a company and they get lower taxes and they hire more people. Okay, the company's stronger. That doesn't mean you made any more money. If we're talking about lower taxes to individuals helping everybody, sure, but I don't know that either candidate is saying that they're going to lower taxes. Biden said he's not going to raise taxes for people making under. If you've got a household income of 400,000 or less, he said he's not going to raise your taxes. He didn't say he was going to lower them. I don't think Trump has said that he's going to lower taxes for average Americans either. Let me see. Sandra Esparza. Many will accuse the Trump supporters as cult members and extremists, but I consider myself an informed voter. I will listen to all sides, and honestly, I hear more lies out of Biden and his Democrats. I've seen lies on both sides. More lies. I guess if you're saying more, I think, look, the Republicans have told some tales. The Democrats have told some tales. If you're saying more lies from the Democrats, then my question would be, what are the more lies that we're talking about? And we also have to differentiate, like, are we talking about things that Trump and Biden have said, or are we talking about things that Republicans versus the Democrats have said? Because those are kind of two different things. Jack Doe, bro, I voted for Hillary in 2016 and now I hate myself for it. Greg Sutton, I don't blame you. You know, 2016 I had to think about, but I'll admit I was 2016 I wasn't very happy with Hillary or Trump back then. Hillary had a lot of Hillary I wasn't comfortable with for a lot of reasons, and Trump didn't have any political experience, and I was struggling with the thought of voting for somebody with no political experience. So that was one situation where I thought, feels like I'm picking the lesser of the two evils. I did a bit of soul searching on that one. Ultimately, Hillary having having experience in politics, I felt was more indicative of her ability to be president than anything. But I'll say this: Trump got in office. When he got in, I thought, oh, this is going to be a disaster. This guy's not a politician. It wasn't a disaster. Economy improved. A lot of people were happy. Things were generally going well. He had a blip because of COVID, but that's not Trump's fault. That COVID affected the whole planet. So I didn't vote for Trump in 2016, but when I looked, I thought, wait a minute, Trump did a much better job than I was expecting. Trump did a good job. I was nervous about somebody who didn't have political experience. Sandra Esparza. I have an extreme respect for our military, and the fact that the illegals get better treatment than our veterans is disgusting. I think the fact that the illegals, I think that looking at how much money is being invested in illegal immigrants versus what's being invested in Americans, yeah, I don't understand that. I don't know anybody who feels good about that. Honestly, that's, like I said, I don't agree with everything the Democratic Party is doing. I don't agree with everything the Republican Party is doing. But my focus personally is more about my personal finances. And I have the question I have is more around immigration and why we continue to let so many people in. I mean, I think I understand the answer. I think we just need a lot of people for some lower paying jobs that are pretty laborious, and we just don't have the workforce that we want, so we're bringing it in wherever we can get it. I think that's a big part of it. That's not the only part. But at what cost? I mean, when you when you see a story in the news about someone who recently migrated in and they're committing crimes, that infuriates you. But you do have to keep in perspective, if you've got a bunch of illegal immigrants who come in, there's a tiny portion who are the bad actors, the criminals. Most of them come in and they just go to work. And I don't know who has a problem with those, but Biden doesn't manage that well. Biden kind of sticks his head in the sand around the issue. That's on him. If he doesn't know how to spin that story, well, he can't blame people for not liking the way he's handling things. Hillary and Obama really messed up in Libya. Okay, you're saying Libya very specifically. So I would go. I have to look at Libya. That's a specific double click. So I'll have to look at that because I generally think about like the Middle East and steps that are going on there in general. But that's such a complicated thing. I mean, you have to. If we're going to talk about the Middle East, we have to talk about going into the Middle East, the whole weapons of mass destruction nonsense. You kind of have to go back to the start and say, well, why were we there? Why did we stay? Why did we get out? How, there's a lot to that. I can't put that all at any individual's feet. I don't know how you do that, given how many people were involved, how long, our occupation, lasted. But let me see. Sandra Esparza. One big one for me is Biden saying no military members died during his administration. He conveniently forgot about Afghanistan. My heart goes out to our Gold Star families. Biden did say, you know what? You're right. You are absolutely right. Biden did say, well, actually, hang on. Let me see. What did he say? I got to look at what he said. I got to go back to what he said. Because I don't know if he said no military people died or if he qualified it. I got to look at how he qualified it. But let's face it. Yeah. Gold Star families were created under Biden. And a lot of it had to do with the way that he withdrew. Yeah, I got to look at the way he said that because I think he worded it funny, but that's a good point. Yeah, if he said it that way, then he lied. He just outright lied. And he'll get called on that with the fact checks. So, kudos to you. Kudos to you for that. MAGA saying MAGA's back. What did I miss? Trump 2024. Scotty to Heidi, he did say no military deaths the way I understood as well. Yeah, I got to look at, I agree. He said it. I got to remember how he said it because, I got to look at how he said it. Now, if he just said nobody died, then he lied. That's an outright lie. But I got to go back and look because I don't remember how he worded it. He might have worded it funny. Not that it matters. I mean, let's face it. People died under his watch. If he's not acknowledging that, shame on him. But, there was a lot going on in that debate. Scotty the Hottie, props for not taking our word for it, though. Well, it's not that I'm not taking, just to be clear, I'm not, I don't disagree with you that he made a statement about nobody dying. It's just I think he said it funny. So I gotta listen to what he said. I mean, some things get argued, and I want to see the smoking gun. Like when Trump was accused of saying, calling veterans suckers and losers, people were saying he said it. Well, I was like, wait a minute. I want to see the video or I want to hear the audio of Trump saying this. I know he's been accused of it, but I don't know that he actually, I don't know what the proof is for him saying it. The only thing I had to, do some digging. It did come down to there's a general who was in a room with him when he said it, who's saying he said it. But, it's like, well, that's a little bit flimsy. He's in the room. Nobody else was there. Is anybody else who was in that room saying, denying that Trump said it? I like to get down to the source. Because there's just a lot. When you get out here and you start to listen to everything that people are saying, there is a lot that'll get reported that's not true. But then you got things like this where you don't need the data. Like I heard Biden say nobody died under his watch. I don't remember the context. If he said it just flat out, then he just flat out lied. But he might have spun it a little bit, like he might have tried to say, "Ooh, while we were in the conflict, and you're like, well, wait a minute, what do you call this? What do you call that bomb that killed, like 13 soldiers? What are you saying that was? Um, so that was weird. Yeah, but in general, let's face it, Biden just did a horrible job. Biden just did a horrible job in general. And kind of to Scotty's point, personal research is important. Absolutely. A lot of people take things on face value and they never look it up. Some of the things that I've really enjoyed about my channel are that I've been able to bring data to people sometimes just to help them understand, like, look, this is where we are as a nation. And sometimes when you see the data, you're like, oh, I actually didn't know that data point. Okay, didn't realize this was a situation. So I agree with that. I agree with, do your research, you know, have a healthy skepticism. If you hear somebody say something, you don't need to do research. You heard them say it. If you don't hear somebody say something, then on both sides, just double check. Trump has been misquoted a lot. Trump has been misrepresented a lot. Biden has been misrepresented, but not nearly as much as Trump has. So it's like, okay, let's take a look at what was said, and let's take a look at the context of how it was said before we kind of make definitive statements. But here's the thing that I want to see for. Here's what I want to see for round 2 of the debate. As far as CNN goes, I wouldn't recommend that CNN change almost anything about the format. I think that format worked great. I didn't want CNN to be the center of the conversation. I wanted to be able to forget that CNN was there, and for the most part, I did. They just kind of asked the question: Trump, you got 2 minutes, go. Biden, you got 2 minutes, go. Okay, we're doing responses. Trump, Biden, back and forth. Nobody got muted, which I was happy about because I really didn't want to see anybody get muted. Now, if they needed to mute somebody, they could. And I was running a stop clock during some of the conversations. Sometimes they gave people like a couple of seconds grace. Instead of 2 minutes, maybe you went 2 minutes and 5 seconds. But they would say time, and you kind of finish your sentence and then you go. I like that. It's like, okay, let's not lose our minds here. The only thing I didn't like was them telling people to take all of their time. I don't agree with that. Mainly that was, I don't think they ever had to do that to Trump. They had to do that to Biden a couple of times. Now it fit the format. I never thought about someone not filling their 2 minutes. That just didn't occur to me until I was watching it. But if Biden gave an answer and it was like a minute long, he had 2 minutes, so they would say, you still have 45 seconds. Would you like to say more? And he would. I would say get rid of that. If he answers a question and he only wants to use a minute and a half to answer it, okay, that was his choice. You give him his time. When he's done, you move on to the next thing. Let's make this as natural as possible. If guys want to take their 2 minutes, let them. Want to use half the time, let them. If they don't want to answer the question that was asked, let them. Let them duke it out. Let them figure it out. I like the way CNN did things because like Trump pivoted. Sometimes they'd ask him one question, he would go do a different question, and they would just kind of they would come back. Okay, so to the question that was asked, what is your answer to this actual question? Which I think that's their job to do. And if Trump still pivoted, you know what? It's not CNN's job to kind of hold his feet to the fire and to battle him. It's Biden's job to do that, and he didn't do that. I say keep that format. If Biden can't figure it out, it's his fault. He chose this format. He chose that setting. He chose these rules. He chose to take the crowd out. He's got no excuses. It's on him. If he picks the format and he looks that bad in a format that he hand chose, he deserves what he gets. That's on him. But he's got a second debate coming up. And while I know a lot of people are in different places about it, I think that if he had, I'm not saying he will, but if he has a great second debate, I think people will forget a lot of what happened in his first debate. People remember the last thing you told them more than the other stuff. I don't see how Trump will have the second debate and have any issues. Trump has shown that he is very comfortable in this format. He's shown that he can bob and weave and come out of it looking really strong. Biden has not. So debate 2, same for if I'm Trump, like, yeah, don't change a thing. I want the exact same format. I loved this first debate. That's my position. If you're Biden, you don't really have a choice. You chose this fight. Now you got to go fight it. But you can't run away. You can't avoid the second debate, or you're basically giving up. That's the equivalent of a boxer throwing in the towel and saying, no mas. So we'll see. We will see. Let me check the comments. Let me see. He says, Scotty the Hottie says they did do it to Trump once to attempt to press him on an issue he was trying to avoid. I do believe it was about Jan 6. Yeah, I think so they did press him once there. They pressed him on that. I think they pressed him on, what was it? I think they pressed him twice. But Jan 6 was the one where, that was the one where they pressed a little harder, but I didn't think they went overboard. I mean, I do think it's fair for CNN to say, okay, here's the question. You didn't answer the question, so, do you want to answer the question that was asked? I think that's entirely fair. But, you press once and then you let it go. I think that's, I don't see how you do anything else. I thought they handled that superbly. Mark says, no way he debates again. People keep saying that, but again, I do not know how Biden can afford not to do a second debate. The people who say no way he debates again are just saying his first round was so bad that he doesn't want to go do that again. But that's not really the issue. He has to show people that he's competent to do the job. He left questions out there for people with that first debate. You can't afford to skip the second debate at this point, because that's the only chance you have for saving yourself. I don't know that he's going to do it, but I know he has to try. And I know that if he refuses to have the second debate, then people are going to call him a coward, and he's not really going to have a good answer to that, and that will pretty much cost him the election. I don't think he can win the election if he runs from the second debate. Mark is saying probably won't be his choice. Well, at the end of the day, he gets to make that call. We'll see. I mean, we will see in a few months. But to Scotty the Hottie, if he doesn't debate again, he will undoubtedly flop at the polls. Absolutely. If he doesn't debate again, he's going to be labeled a coward, and that's going to kill it for him. He can do badly in the second debate, and that's better than him not participating in the second debate at all. It's not good, but it's better than being labeled a coward. Labeled a coward, you're done. Just pack your bags, head on home. Really like the show. I like that we had people who were able to come in and have a conversation. We got people who are pro-Trump. We got people who are pro-Biden. We're able to have a conversation and not have people name calling. We're able to look at the debate and where it was and kind of look at it fairly. I mean, kind of in recap, Trump won the first debate. He walked out of that looking strong. Biden walked out of that looking incompetent. I don't know how much of an impact that's going to have at the end of the day, just because that's going to impact some early votes. But there's another debate before people go to the ballots, and the last thing people see is what they tend to remember most. Biden's got a lot of work to do if these debates are going to be what decides the election, because he's behind right now if that's the case. But we'll see. We got one more comment from Sandra Esparza. I was actually very surprised that although it was CNN, they did a fairly good job moderating. If it had not been, you would have definitely lost much more credibility. Well, let's face it, if they didn't do a good job moderating, I try to be very even-handed. I thought that Trump was going to lose, but it was because of the format. That's the craziest thing. Biden handpicked these rules. He laid out, this is the kind of debate I want to have, because this is the debate that I think makes me look good and makes Trump look bad. And I just thought, well, shoot, Trump is walking into a setup, but he volunteered for it. When we did a show just before the debate, I said that, like, if I was Trump, I wouldn't have taken these rules because they're pro-Biden rules. But CNN handled it well. Trump handled it well. The only person who didn't handle it well is the person who said, this is the only format that I want. That's on Biden. Scotty DeHottie, what people should see is if he can't handle a debate about our American issues, how can he possibly handle the world stage? The world is in turmoil and most countries look to the U.S. for leadership. Sandra Esparza, well said, Scotty. ADF humbled itself. I think that's a good spot to leave it in. It was a, for better or for worse, it was a great debate because it was very telling about the candidates and how we should be viewing them, going forward. We're going to see what happens at the polls, but before that, we're going to see what happens in debate too. My name's Gene. I'm the last good man in Jersey. If you like the content, like and subscribe. Click the notification bell so that when I do more shows, you'll be informed and you can participate. With that, we're out.